What's up, everyone? My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. And let's go ahead and revisit the topic of FRFR speakers today. There's still a lot of confusion and a lot of common problems that take place when utilizing this ecosystem. One thing that we really don't want to fall victim to here is just the simple notion that, well, use an FRFR because it's better and that's all you need to worry about. We really want to learn what it is that this thing is, and I'm going to use the term ecosystem again, what this ecosystem is, so that we know how to appropriately set up our guitar tones to function within it. So let's talk ecosystem. What is an FRFR ecosystem? What do we mean when we're talking FRFR? Now, on paper, it states that FRFR is full range flat response. But what does that mean in the greater system of just, audio systems? An FRFR system or a full range system is just like your car stereo. It's just like the sound bar on your TV, your home theater system. It's much like, your local PA at your local club or small venue. It's the same thing as a Meyer Sound big line array in a stadium. And it's also kind of the same thing that is in your little portable Bluetooth speaker. In this sense, the meaning of full range is that it's going to try to do everything that it can to reproduce all of the frequencies evenly across the frequency spectrum. This actually might vary from speaker to speaker. Some speakers might go as low as 40 hertz, and other speakers might only go to about 80, maybe 100 hertz, depending on exactly kind of what's going on. But within that speaker's design, it wants to try to replicate all of those frequencies evenly. And hopefully my illustration a second ago kind of paints a little more of an accurate picture of the different levels of quality within FRFR speaker systems, right? So your little, $50 Bluetooth speaker is still within the same ecosystem as the Meyer Sound line array that would be at, in a very expensive install at a big stadium or theater or something like that. So just like with everything, there are various levels of quality at different price points. Hey, we'll get back to chatting about FRFR here in a second, but first I wanted to mention something that is going to help you as a guitar player way more than the gear, way more than the FRFR or the live guitar cabinet in the room. If you really want to improve your guitar playing, if you really want to improve your overall musicianship, pound for pound, it is much better to have a firm and complete grasp of the basics of music theory. No joke. Music theory is the secret. It is the key to understanding everything you need to know about guitar playing and music in general. So, with that in mind, you should really go ahead and check out my Essential Music Theory cheat sheet. All the basics of music theory are written out for you in helpful charts and graphs. I use this all the time in my own lessons when I teach students. It is a helpful and wonderful document, and I think you would get a lot out of it. So once again, you can head over to matthewdale.com/theory and download it for yourself. So now, before we get into the realm of guitar FRFR speakers, the closest thing that we have to that would be just a regular portable powered PA speaker. So this is a QSC K10. There is a 10-inch speaker in here, and there is a horn high-frequency driver in here, and it's got some stuff going on the back panel, and it's powered. This is 1,000 watts going into this full-range flat response speaker. This speaker in particular goes down to about 40 hertz, I want to say. I forget what the high-frequency number is, but I'm sure it can reproduce things that I can't hear at this point. So it definitely covers all of the frequencies that I and probably you can actually hear. Now, this is what I use for my personal guitar FRFR ecosystem. I like going the PA route or the, powered PA speaker route because I think you get a little bit more bang for your buck, and this is a multi-purpose speaker. I use this in my PA setup. I can use it as a wedge monitor at a gig. I can just play some regular music with it. It's got, the inputs on the back, the RCA inputs on the back, and it's got a mic pre if I want to set this up and use it just as like, a mic and acoustic guitar. There's a lot of versatility going on here. And QSC did a really, really, really good job with this. I'm going to circle back around on these guys a little bit later, but this is what I'm using. When I say FRFR on my channel, this is what I'm referencing, or I'm also referencing my QSC K12s, so the bigger brother to this, which sound really great in the right environment. Or I might also be talking about my studio monitors that are sitting over here on my desk. These are the PreSonus Aris E5s, so just a 5-inch studio monitor. Not a ton of bass on these. I kind of want maybe a subwoofer at some point, but if I do want to listen to a more accurate representation of the low end that I'm getting in my guitar tones, I usually pump it through these guys. Now, when we start talking about guitar-specific FRFR speakers, so like think of the Friedmans or the Atomic CLRs, these are really branded for, guitar modelers or guitarists using modelers to plug in to that system, and they're supposed to be quote-unquote better for guitar players. And that might be true, but it also might not be true. And the reason is because I'm going to go back to this phrase, ecosystem. When we're setting up to utilize an FRFR speaker system, we are usually going into a front-of-house PA sound system. And that's why I like using PA speakers, because I want to know that when I dial in my guitar tones, what's coming out of my PA speakers is probably going to be something fairly similar to what's coming out of the PA speakers at a venue. Not that I have anything against the Friedman FRFR speakers or the Atomic CLRs. I think those are great. I'm just using this to sort of equalize my playing field. Now, more specific. Let's get more specific to guitar here. That's the ecosystem, right? So we are replicating all frequencies, all instruments, on an even playing field. That's what FRFR means, or full range system. That's what that means. So do we want to somehow make our guitars full range as opposed to the more limited range that has been used in guitar-related music for the past 100 years or so? No. What we are actually trying to do by utilizing an FRFR ecosystem with our guitar rigs is try to equalize the playing field and maybe make our setups a little bit easier, a little bit more compact, and a little bit more convenient. So with that in mind, an FRFR speaker is not within the box of our electric guitar instrument. So what is the instrument of electric guitar? Number one, it's the guitar. Right? So, your Strat, your Les Paul, whatever it is that you have. That is part one of this 3-part electric guitar instrument. Number 2 are going to be your effects. So any drive pedals, modulation pedals, delay, reverb, the stuff that lives on your pedal board is another part of that. We can't really have the sound of U2 without various effects. We can't really get the sound of Jimi Hendrix without a univibe and a fuzz face. And then the third part, and arguably one of the most important ones, would be the amp and cabinet. And I'm putting these on, one succinct thing because we've never really had to think about those separately from a historical perspective, right? So if we go back to the 40s and 50s, we have combo amplifiers, probably a Fender or something, and you plug in and that, guitar signal gets amplified and then it goes to a speaker and out it goes. When we got into heads and cabinets like, the Marshall, the JTM45 and the Plexis, all that sort of thing. Then we have this amplifier and that goes straight to a speaker. And they've always been, amp and cab has always been kind of a succinct individual unit. The FRFR speaker is not taking place of that. It's not even taking place of one of those. It's not taking place of the cabinet. So when we utilize or are trying to live within the ecosystem of FRFR, we still need to have something that is doing our amp tones and our cabinet tones. And usually what we use to do that is some type of IR, an impulse response. And an impulse response is a very specific thing. It's the sound of a certain speaker cabinet and a certain speaker through a recording chain. So it's mic'd up and then it's, brought into a DAW, and there's some specialized software that goes on that captures the sound of that speaker and that cabinet through a specific microphone. The only thing that we're actually using an FRFR speaker to do is just to make the sound of our electric guitar instrument, all of that stuff already in place, guitar, effects, amp, and cab, and just make that louder. So this brings me kind of to common problem or thing that you want to avoid. Number one, don't mic your FRFR speaker. That is not what it's designed to do. It will yield you less than satisfactory results. So even if you put like an IR in place, it's like a 412 greenback, mic'd up with an SM57 or something like that, it's not going to turn your FRFR into a 412, and you're not going to want to put a mic on it because, again, it's not going to work. And why would you want it to work that way if you're already within this system and you can just send a direct line to front of house? That's what this system is for. And maybe to some of you, this seems like it's kind of self-explanatory, but I've actually played gigs and I've brought, my K10 or something just to have a little bit of live monitoring, and I had a sound engineer that was like, well, I can put a microphone on your FRF. No, don't do that. It's not going to give you the guitar tone you are hoping for. This also kind of leads me to frustration point number 2. An FRFR ecosystem is not amp in the room. And even amp in the room isn't really amp in the room. When we're talking about amp in the room and everyone's like, benchmark for good guitar tone, it doesn't sound like the amp in the room. What we're really talking about is guitar cabinet in the room. And guess what you don't have if you are using an IR? You don't have a physical guitar cabinet in the room. Even the IR itself isn't really shot with that in mind, most of them. Sometimes you can get room IRs, but I don't really use a lot of those. I really don't think that's, a great way to do that sort of thing. Some people have good luck with them. It's just not, my cup of tea. But the IR is shot, once again, if you think about what I said, the IR is shot, this speaker loaded in this cabinet through a microphone. So if you've ever been in this recording situation, whether it's home recording or studio recording or whatever, but you bring in, your 100-watt Marshall and you have it cranked through a 412 cabinet in the recording room, and it's loaded with greenbacks and V30s or something, and it's absolutely screaming, and you get in that recording room and you think it sounds amazing and epic, and you go listen to the control room that has an SM57, maybe you got some nicer microphones on your cabinet, you've got a Royer 121 or whatever, insert whatever favorite mic you might have. But you go listen to that tone in the control room through these studio monitors, and you're like, that sounds like a lot thinner than what I was experiencing in the room, right? And this isn't even really a digital versus analog sort of thing. I'm going to circle back around on this as well, but this is just a fact of recording in capturing guitar tones, whether it's digital or analog. And I say this with much vigor, because if you are hoping that your FRFR speaker or playing through an FRFR ecosystem, that could be also, like going through wedge monitors or using a power speaker as a wedge monitor or going into in-ears, if you are hoping that it is going to sound and feel like you are playing with a guitar cabinet, a live powered guitar cabinet, right next to you in a room, you're going to have a bad time. That's not what this is trying to do. This is like saying, why isn't the pole vaulter, running a 100-meter dash as fast as the guys that are running a 100-meter dash, right? These are two very different things. And also, not that one is better than the other. Okay, there are certain instances where you might want to have the live guitar speaker cabinet in a room or in a club or something. And there are other instances where you might want to utilize an FRFR ecosystem if you're doing in-ears, if you got silent stage going on. And also, I think there's a certain case to be made for controllability. If you are always having, some sort of consistent IR that is being utilized in your guitar rig and then going to front of house, that's going to give you an overall more consistent tone from like venue to venue or gig to gig, rather than trying to get that microphone set up in exactly the right place on that cone of that speaker cabinet every single time. And then like I've done in the past, I've either I or someone else has accidentally hit that microphone and now it's off and now you have a completely different tone. Right? It's not very consistent, especially when we think of for live use. Circling back around on this, another thing, FRFR doesn't always mean digital, right? This is not an analog versus digital or tube amp versus modeler sort of conversation. An FRFR ecosystem can be utilized with either, just like a live guitar cabinet can be utilized with either. For many years, I used my tube amps and I plugged them into this. This is a Hughes & Kettner Red Box DI, and this sort of simulates a 412. And you have a couple of options like, tight, loose, modern, vintage, large cabinet, small cabinet, yada, yada, yada. This sort of simulates a microphone on a 412, and you have a DI that goes to front of house. And then you can also have a speaker pass-through, so you plug this in from your amp head or from your amp, and then through back to your speaker, so you can still have that live experience, live cabinet experience on stage, while also sending a very clean and controllable signal to front of house. This is powered by phantom power. You could use it with a 9-volt power supply, although I don't see why you would. If you are plugged into any sort of modern soundboard, just send phantom to this. And also, what I've done in the past a lot is if you need to utilize a silent stage, then you can get a load box, a reactive load box like this. This is 8 ohms at 100 watts. So rather than going from the amplifier to the speaker, I can go from the amplifier to this and have a very easy and very compact and not much money way of doing a silent stage and direct to front of house FRFR ecosystem, still with all the same tube amps and pedals and stuff that I would already have. This, I think, in total cost, maybe $200 to $300 for this and this combined. I got this on like Reverb, or someone custom made this, and then these are about $150 or something. Now, a little bit nicer of a way to do that, or a little bit of a step up where you can actually load in your own custom IRs and tweak them, would be something like the 2 Notes Torpedo. This gives you a lot more options for loading in your own custom IRs. You can utilize any sort of IRs that you like, and you can still do the same like speaker pass-through, or even send it again to like, a dedicated load box or something. And there's probably other products out there that have internal loads on them, and we're actually starting to see this more and more built into amplifiers, so that amplifiers can do this right off the bat. Think of like the Pete Thorne Signature Sur amp that has a 2 Notes Torpedo built in, and there's a bunch of other amps like the Revs, I believe, that have something similar going on, and they also have their own dedicated built-in load where you can run the amp silently, safely. And then, yes, on the other side of things, you have, modelers like my HX Stomp or any of my Fractal gear in here that already has all of this stuff sort of baked in. So the entire electric guitar ecosystem, besides the electric guitar, lives within this thing, and then you are sending a balanced line level signal out of the output jacks that already have your effects, your amplifier, and the cabinet IR already sent out. These still, you can run these to a just like a clean power amp, or you can even run these into the effects return of a tube amplifier and run these to a live speaker cabinet as well. I actually recently just brought this to a gig I did recently. They had a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, and I didn't use any of the front panel stuff. I just took this, plugged it into the effects return, and had a great experience doing that, and it was really easy and, again, really controllable. I already had my my sounds dialed in, so I just went through my presets, and it worked well. Let's circle back a little bit to my original point of saying that, the Bluetooth speaker, the home theater sound bar, the Meyer sound line array system are all within a full range style system. This means that there is going to be varying qualities of FRFR across the board. I like my QSCs, and the reason I like my QSCs is back when I was working at a music store, I got to demo these and play with these all the time. When I was running live sound for my church, we used QSC K12s, so I knew how the K12s worked and sounded. So I was very familiar with the sound of these amplifiers. I also tried some other ones that they had at the music store, like the Presonus powered speakers. I tried some JBLs, I tried some Yamahas, and a couple of other things, and I really, really, really liked the sound of the K12s, and that's kind of what made me buy K12s and K10s. So you definitely want to listen to these before you make a decision. I know a lot of people have been trying out the Headrush FR108 and the 112s. I don't remember if they have a 10-inch option. A lot of people have been trying those, and those are definitely a really good, like, more budget option. But I do hear a lot of times that they have a ton of low end in them. And within an FR speaker ecosystem, or even utilizing these as wedges, you might experience more low end buildup if you are using them in wedge configuration and they are pushed up in a wall or in a corner. There's just a lot more chances for those low end frequencies to build up. So not all FRFR speakers are created equal. You really want to do your research, try them out if you can. If I had to buy, since I already have K10s and K12s, if I had to buy, some brand new FRFR speakers that I was going to be gigging out, I really would probably be interested in looking at the CP8s from QSC, just because I want something that's a little bit more lighter and a little bit more portable. So the last couple of things I'm going to talk about to ensure that you can get the absolute most out of your FRFR ecosystem is going to be EQ. Just some basic EQ guidelines to help you with this. We've already talked about how these speakers can build up a lot of low end. And if we think about what our guitar speakers are typically reproducing, those are limited to right around like 75 hertz on the low end to maybe about 5K. That's like what a guitar speaker will reproduce. So another common complaint that you might hear about would be, well, I'm using a digital modeler and I'm plugged into an FRFR and it sounds fizzy, and it sounds digital, and it sounds, whichever, way you want to put it. That's less actually about like the digitalness of this, and it's actually more about what you are sending into the FRFR. Remember, these are reproducing all the frequencies, or they are trying to reproduce all the frequencies evenly. So one of the first things that I do is dial out the low end on, even if I'm like running live sound or if I'm setting up my own guitar tones. I almost always just start my low end cutoff, and I usually use a pretty aggressive cutoff, maybe around like 12 decibels per octave. I start at around 80 hertz. If I'm doing more live stuff, I'll probably actually move that up to about 100 hertz. I don't want to reproduce a lot of those sub-low-end frequencies. One, I don't want to get in the room, any room of the bass player, and I don't want to make my guitar sound muddy in the space. The next thing I do is I take a high-pass filter, and I go from all the way up from 20 hertz, and I bring that down to about 6 hertz. If I'm in my studio, 5 hertz, just like our typical guitar speakers, I will bring that down to about 5,000 hertz, 5K. I will bring that down all the way down there so I can be within more of the guitar frequencies. So low pass, 100 hertz, high pass, 5K. Hey, it's Matt from the editing room. I needed to clarify a couple things because I actually misspoke on my terminology here. What I meant to say was I start with a low cut or a high pass filter at around 100 hertz, and then I use a high cut or a low pass filter, and I'll bring it as far down as 5K or 5,000 hertz. These filters that I usually put on my guitar tones are usually fairly aggressive at 12 decibels per octave. So, making that clarification here. So I hope this helps you utilize FRFR systems better. Again, this isn't about, which is better sounding. This is about more so what is better for the specific situation that you are in and how to get the most out of the FRFR ecosystem. I hope this video and the information within it has been helpful to you. If you have a comment to share, let me know your thoughts in the comment space below. My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more, and I'll see you next time.